They shrink the product, they hiked the price, banked record profits, and told you it was about inflation. Now, this episode is about calling it what it actually is. Now, usually on this show, I like to have a good time. I like getting nostalgic, digging up some good old day kind of things. And when I say good old days, I'm talking about like 2005, whatever, some hazy stretch of used to be better. That's usually where I like to go. Not today. Today I'm angry, and I want to tell you why. Quick question for you, though. When did you last stand in the cereal aisle at the grocery store and actually feel that box? Not read it, feel it. Because I want you to think about how light it felt in your hand and how you probably told yourself, prices are just crazy right now. It moved on with your day. I'm not mocking you. I've been doing the same thing for like 2 years straight, and I'm about over it. My name's Tyler. Thanks for being here. Today, I'm talking about shrinkflation, or as the economic people like to coin this new term, greedflation. Two ugly words economics has given us. Thank you for that, I guess. And, about why calling any of this just inflation lets a whole lot of rich people off the hook. And I don't like letting the rich bastards off the hook. So before I get any further, because I'm worked up on this one, opinions are mine, nobody else's. All of this is from my point of view. Now, here's my confession before we get any further. I am, by nature, I'm a guy who doesn't like confrontation. Especially, confrontation about money. I'll notice that bag feels lighter, and I'm still going to buy the bag every time. I've bought the smaller Doritos bag at the same price a dozen times without, saying a word to anybody. Not my wife, not my friends, not the rest of my family. And you know why? Because it felt, petty to complain about a bag of chips. I'm here to tell you it's not petty, because that's the whole con. They're betting on you feeling like it is petty. So, let's lay out what actually happened, because this part isn't opinion. This is documented. This is happening. Doritos. Doritos? They went from 9 3/4 ounces to 9 1/4 ounce. Same price. That's about like 5 fewer chips a bag. And when a reporter asked PepsiCo about it, their spokesperson said, quote, "We took a little bit out of the bag so we could give you the same price and you keep enjoying your chips." Like it's some kind of gift. Like shrinking the bag was some kind of favor. Oh, thanks, Doritos. Give me my 5 chips back. Now, Gatorade, they did the same thing. 32 ounces down to 28. And these guys didn't even try to hide it. They redesigned the damn bottle to look some sort of, aerodynamic, so you wouldn't clock that you're paying the same amount of money for 4 fewer ounces. General Mills, the cereal company, the family size box, 19.3 ounces down to 18.1. No price change. When NPR asked about it, they said it was about reducing emissions. When they talked to their own investors, they called it, and I'm not making this phrase up, I don't know what kind of buzzword soup this crap came from, but they called it price pack architecture. Look it up. Different rooms, different words, the same thing. Shrinkflation, greedflation, and shitification of physical products, whatever you want to call it. They pitch one thing differently to the investors versus what they tell the news, because they don't want you to know. And here's the one that actually, this is what got me going. This is why I'm so worked up today, because I had to record this episode when I read this one. I was like, all right, we're doing an episode on this. Kimberly-Clark. If you don't know that name, they basically make a lot of toilet paper and other products out there. I'm not going to go through the list, but their CEO was talking about raising prices on toilet paper. Said out loud on the record, quote, if the price goes up on bath tissue, generally that doesn't mean you're going to use the bathroom less, right? That's the thinking. You need this. You're not going to go anywhere. They're going to squeeze away. Now, the other part they don't want strung together with those shrinking bags. While all of this was happening, corporate profits, they weren't just fine, they were record-breaking. The Groundwork Collaborative went through the actual federal data and found corporate profits drove 53% of inflation in the back half of 2023. 53%. Now, compare that to the 40 years before the pandemic, where profits historically explained about 11% of inflation. That's not a small shift. That's a different game entirely. I don't even care to imagine where it's gone since 2023 up to now 2026. I'm sure it hasn't gotten any better. Think about it, though. Fourth quarter of 2023, corporate profits hit $2.8 trillion with a T. $2.8 trillion. A record. The FTC did their own investigation into grocery pricing and found that retailer profit margins hit 7% over cost in 2023, above even the previous peak. Their own chair said dominant firms use this moment to come out ahead at the expense of the people they serve. You and me. That's the FTC saying that. Not some guy on a podcast. That's the FTC's own wording. Meanwhile, think about your paycheck. Real wages were down 25 straight months. Now, as you can imagine, CEO pay in that same stretch hit 290 times what a typical worker makes. In 1965, that ratio was 21 to 1. 21 to 1 used to be considered generous. So no. This was not inflation happening to companies the same as it was happening to you. This was some companies using inflation as a cover, as an excuse, and a lot of that extra money went straight to the top, not sideways to cover those higher costs. Now, if that first 10 minutes of this didn't bug you, this will probably get your blood boiling a little bit. And I want to say this slow because I want it to be heard. I want it to land. There were bills, actual bills in Congress. One of them, called the Shrinkflation Prevention Act, would have made the FTC treat this shrink and hide game as a deceptive practice. The Price Gouging Prevention Act, the other one, would have gone after exactly what the FTC's own report described. Guess what happened? No, go ahead, guess. Both of them died. They weren't voted down. Died, sat in a committee, never even got a hearing, never got a vote, while the food and beverage industry spent close to $30 million in a single year lobbying the same people who were supposed to be writing the rules. Now, I want to be fair here because I really do try to be. Not every economist agrees on how much of this is pure greed versus real cost catching up late in the game or whatever. The San Francisco Fed pushed back on the greedflation framing. Some of this is genuinely complicated, but even the researchers who are skeptical don't dispute the markup spikes in the certain specific sectors, and that prices stayed high long after the cost that supposedly caused them came back down. Now, nobody's disputing that part. Nobody. So, a few things I keep coming back to, where I land. One, let's be real. Stop calling it inflation in your head, because the word does a lot of work letting everybody off the hook. Inflation is what happens to everybody equally. Now, what happened here is some companies raised prices faster than costs, ranked the product on top of it, and kept the difference. They gamed you. They're pocketing that extra money. We need to call it what it is. When you talk about it, words matter here more than people think. All right, another one. The people who could have done something about it mostly didn't. Not because they lacked the spine or the cojones or the tools. The FTC wrote the report. Congress had the bills. It just didn't happen. And there's a lot of lobbying money and more than a few members of Congress trading stock in these same industries sitting right there in the middle of that story. Something like 86% of Americans across party lines, we don't agree on much anymore, but we agreed on this, think Congress shouldn't be allowed to trade stock in industries that they regulate. 86%. Now, that's about as close to some sort of universal agreement as this country gets on anything. And it still hasn't happened. Last one. I promise. Last one. And this is one that's actually about you and me, not the economy. You're allowed to be loud about this. You're allowed to post the receipt. You're allowed to email whoever represents you and say, I know what you did and what you didn't do here. You're allowed to stop feeling embarrassed about noticing the bag is lighter. That instinct, they're counting on. The one where you think it's beneath you to complain about a bag of chips. That instinct, that's what they're counting on. That you won't complain, that you won't raise a stink about this, that you won't call your representatives, that you won't go online and post the receipts. That's what they're selling you, along with that smaller bag. Stop buying that part. I don't got a neat little bow to put on this one. I'm not going to give you 3 easy tips to somehow beat corporate greed. Mainly because, there aren't 3 easy tips. But I am telling you, what I'm telling you is, basically, your anger It's correct. What you're feeling, that's correct. You're not being dramatic about it. You're not being petty about it. I think a lot more people should speak up. You did the math. You know what's going on. Even if you're trying to tell yourself, I'm imagining this. That instinct, that gut feeling that something is wrong, listen to it. And that's the show. If you want to keep up with it, subscribe wherever you're listening. If that's YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you can find everything else at tylerwoodward.me. And if you want to buy me a cup of coffee, I don't think that one is shrank yet. You can do that at tylerwoodward.me as well. Don't really know how to end it. I don't have a clean little sign off. And today I just kind of want to leave it messy because, well, the thing that I'm pissed off about is, I guess, a little messy too. So that seems fitting, right? So I'll catch you guys next week.